Hello, Whitefish. With summer wrapped up and the fall colors beginning to show, this is my favorite time of year to visit Glacier. It was definitely a busy summer up there. For more on what's been happening in the park, here is the Daily Interlake's Taylor Inman.
Hello, I'm Daily Interlake reporter Taylor Inman. Lake McDonald Lodge Loop Dispatch received a report on August 21st from a visitor that his 13-year-old daughter had a fishhook stuck in her face.
Aw, ouch.
At Logan Pass Visitor Center that same day, rangers responded to a disorderly conduct report of a visitor spitting on a Glacier National Park Conservancy employee.
What? No, don't spit on the park rangers.
Rangers responded to the Mini Glacier Hotel on August 21st for an indoor bear spray deployment. Upon arrival, the rangers discovered an individual had accidentally sprayed his genitals while in the lobby restroom.
Okay, what the actual f***? Today's episode is brought to you by Thrivers Coffee. If you would like to help support the fight against human trafficking, visit thriverscoffee.com to order your coffee and make a difference today.
Take 3.
Lynn Wood Fields. Thanks for coming on my show for the third time.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
You're my first third time guest.
Yeah.
We won't get into why. But I think this speaks to the ease of Montana. We're talking about filmmaking again, and how easy filmmakers and people that work in video production are in Montana. Because I've worked on some productions where something minor happens, and it's just like flames from hell from the producers and stuff. And I just love to be back here in Montana making films and working in video production, largely because the culture is just so much easier to work with.
Agreed. Yes.
So let's start from the beginning. Why should someone be interested in filmmaking in Montana or video production? Because I feel like a lot of people kind of moan and groan when you talk about like a movie coming to town because they immediately think of Yellowstone and this and that and the ripple effect that Yellowstone has had on affordable housing and just people moving here. But Montana has such a rich history of filmmakers and filmmaking, and now we're really entering an incredible new chapter. So how does it all begin?
Well, thanks, Morgan, for having me on for the third time.
You're welcome.
We've had some technical errors, but it's going to hone our skills on this interview.
Exactly.
And it's good to see you.
Good to see you, too.
It's good to hang out. Morgan and I go way back.
Way back, yeah.
We're old school Whitefish friends. Well, I'm going to go way back, too, because I think it's really important for people to know the history a little bit of filmmaking in Montana. I know it goes even further back, but I grew up here in the 90s, and filmmaking was huge in the 90s. And I don't know if you remember that, but it was happening all over Glacier and everywhere. And I remember really badly wanting to be on Beethoven. They were,
right.
Do you remember that?
Filming Beethoven's Second.
I was like, I want to be in that. And I didn't even know that was an option until they were here. So filmmaking happened here. It was exploding because we're such a beautiful state. And then Canada figured out if they incentivized productions, they would get all that work. And so we went from having this industry to not having any in the state, and it dropped off massively, and they all went to Canada, and it did work. And then we had what's known as a film incentive in 2016 at Sunset, and it wasn't the strongest of incentives. So I've been a filmmaker in the state of Montana for going on 15 years and was invited to help write the Media Act, which is known as the Montana Economic Development Industry Advancement Act, in 2018, and we passed it in 2019. And it has been very successful.
What is it? So break down what that is. And,
so with the Media Act, we wrote that to benefit Montana filmmakers and businesses. So you get 25% for working with crew and local vendors. But the main thing to know about the Media Act is when that passed, I don't think we had a clue that we would be as successful as we've been. You know, I actually think we should be proud that we have the number 1, number 2, number 3 show in the world filming. I actually think that's something I'm surprised Montanans aren't more proud about. And at the same time we passed that, they are required to do what's known as an economic report from the film office. And the numbers to me are quite impressive. So we went from maybe 40 productions. We just launched the 2024 economic report, and we have over 167 productions happening right now. And we're not done with 2024. We went from a few filmmakers to we have over 1,000 filmmakers in the state making $50K or more full time. And those are local Montana filmmakers. And I think there's kind of this idea that all these productions are out of state. That is not the reality. There are multiple productions filmed by Montana filmmakers. And I think that's something to be proud of. In the last 5 years, we've built a real workforce. And then the last thing is they just showed the economic report. We went from, I want to say it was, I don't have it in front of me, but 40 million of economic impact. This last one, and we're still in 2024, $312 million of economic impact that goes into the Montana pockets.
Holy smokes. That is a huge number.
It's huge. Now, we are at a crossroads that is very intense this year for 2025 legislation. We are out of what's known as cap tax credit and till 2028, which means actually if we cannot get the cap up, we are done with this industry in the state. And so this is a pretty big year. And this is also the first year we've created a coalition, and it's just made of Montana filmmakers, businesses, and supporters. And it'll be the first time we've written the bill. So I actually hear what people are saying. I agree with it. I think we could write this bill to protect Montanans way better. And what that looks like is what's known as sideboards. Sideboards are amendments to the current bill that protects Montana filmmakers. And we are writing in that 60% moving forward will be reserved for Montana filmmakers and businesses.
Oh, that's incredible.
Yes. And we are fine. You know, the bigger productions bring a lot of money, but they don't always hire as much crew. And so some of those sideboards are like reserving 10% for what's known as SAG Ultra budget, which is under $3 million. And those hire like 90 to 100% Montana crew. So when you're talking about the workforce and then you're talking about the housing issue, two things that are really important is we won't have the same housing issue in terms of them bringing crew because we will have had enough crew and we have reserves that promote Montana crew.
So that is more actually economically viable for the productions just to hire here.
And for Montanans who are actually making productions. So I am somebody who's a producer in the state of Montana, and I have a few productions. I want to hire 100% Montana crew. I do have a big production that I've already been told if we cannot get this incentive up, we'd have to go to Canada. And it's a Montana story. So this is like something that really breaks my heart. If we don't get this, we'll also have like over probably 2,000 displaced Montana filmmakers. And Montana productions will still happen in other states.
Oh.
They'll tell our story in Canada. Oklahoma is wooing so many of our productions. Texas went from 40 million to 200 million. And so 1923 is doing most of theirs down there.
Right.
And the last thing I will say is I feel like people really want to blame for the housing crisis and they want to blame film. I don't think that's all the way accurate in the fact that COVID hit, we were open for business, and remote workers can work anywhere now. I was sitting next to a woman just recently at honestly, Tyler Childers, which was amazing, but
nice.
In Missoula. And she was in Corvallis and she was like, oh, we hate Yellowstone. And then I was like, oh, okay. And then she said, I said, what do you do? She's like, oh, I'm a remote worker from Miami. I make $236,000 and I don't pay taxes in the state of Montana. And I was like, that's the problem here. Like, one of the biggest problems is that, people are getting paid for other states' wages in our state. And I think film is actually the answer because we pay the same amount for film and Montanans are really, really good at it. We're hard workers and we have built up a crew base that can get paid the same wages as other states but live here.
You bring up an interesting point about wages, and film productions tend to pay really well unless you're working on something small that's like a passion project. But it can be very, I don't want to say lucrative, but it's incredibly satisfying and well-paying line of work. I want to kind of backtrack and talk about the cap. What does it mean that the cap needs to get raised?
We have a great written bill. We have a low cap. So we have $10 million was passed in 2019. And then in 2021, we were able to get it to 12 million. Now, at the time, we didn't see that we would have productions that are spending 30 million episode, which is unheard of. I mean, it's unheard of the amount of quality that we're getting out of Montana. Now, with that being said, I think the most important thing that people don't realize is this bill is not written that the government pays any money. It is really more of a refund than it is an incentive, but we don't call it a rebate because the government doesn't pay. So what I'm saying by that is, in fact, the production has to spend the money in the state. They have to spend lots of money and show where they spent their money through receipts. And then after they show that money, we give them some of that back, but we keep it. So the best way that I can think of to say this is, let's say $1 million is $1. And a production comes in and says to the state of Montana, I'm going to give you $1. And we say, great, we're going to take that $1, but you have to spend it in Montana. So they spend it on lumber, they spend it on local crew. And after they spend all that, they give the receipts, and then the Department of Revenue audits it. It's supposed to verify, but they audit, and they also have a third-party audit. And then they say, great, you spent the money. We'll give you 25 cents back, but we're going to keep 75 cents. And then on top of that, they have to sell it to somebody who pays state income tax. They don't, again, the government does not write a check ever. It just goes into the treasury.
Okay.
And they sell it to somebody, person a person who has a sales income tax, and they'll buy it for cash for like 15 cents. So the great thing about it, and this is so important, is that we don't pay productions to come here. They pay us, and we give them a refund. So basically, for $10 to $12 million of refund, they have probably spent over $100 million.
What? Wild.
So the economic impact is real. It's huge. It's helpful, and it doesn't cost us anything. So it doesn't take away from property taxes or like other things that the government is trying to figure out with their budget. It actually just adds to the treasury. And so we're going after a bill to catch up, because again, we are out probably $36 million, which means any production looking to film here can't get any incentive. And there's too many states that do have it. Again, Oklahoma has like 30 or 40 million now. Texas has 200 million. Canada has a lot. And I think Canada's unlimited.
Right.
And so a Montana production like myself, the first thing they're going to say to me is, Lynn Wood, does Montana have an incentive, and do they have any money? And if I say no, they're going to say, we can't film there. When there's too many other places, they send what's known as a second unit team, and they just get exterior B-roll.
Right.
And that doesn't help the economy. That doesn't keep our crew working. So point is, we're trying to get it up to at least 30 million to catch up. But what that also does is make sure that all our Montana filmmakers do not lose their jobs, which they will. 2025 is the biggest legislative session we've ever had.
So what needs to happen? What can Montanans do to push to make this happen? Talk to our local legislators?
Yes, talk to our local legislators. If we highly welcome you to what's known as the Montana Media Coalition. It's the first time we've ever formalized, and we have a membership base, and you can do $35 for supporters, $100 for filmmakers, and $1,000 for like major productions, who you also get 5 memberships out of that. Mm-hmm. But that goes to our work of like printouts and me traveling and a lobbyist and those kind of things that are needed to pass a bill. And, I think it's an exciting time. We've shown ourselves to have built up crew. We are an amazing place to film. We are the hardest workers. Mm-hmm. We're starting to tell our own stories. And, I really hear people when they're talking about the Paramount universe. I think, though, people don't realize, again, 167 other productions are happening here. Let's talk about the film you just showed.
Right, bring them home.
Bring them home. The other piece is our Indigenous filmmakers are incredible. They're the best in the world. That's something we should be really proud of. And we're working hard to train and use this as a workforce across the state. But we have, I created the Media Training Center that does training for film and gets people film set ready. We do a production assistant course, and we're working to get that in every high school in the state, just so people can do it if they want. And we've had huge success in tribal communities. We're going to be in Hardin, Pryor. We're going to have over 100 Indigenous filmmakers trained here soon. And Ivy and Ivy McDonald have come and talked to our classes from there, Bring Them Home. Beautiful film, documentary film.
Yeah.
These films are happening everywhere across the state.
And they're working on another one called Buffalo Stone. I don't know if you've heard about this.
Oh, cool.
It's a narrative that's sort of a spin-off on Bring Them Home that will star Lily Gladstone. I guess she's co-writing it, and I think they're going to start filming next year.
Amazing.
But, yeah, totally.
And then there's like so many more. Amanda Bear Medicine did a beautiful short film about the 60 60 scoop called Return to the Blanket that is a story about Joseph Grady.
Oh.
And we're working on like 5 other productions, and it's just very exciting time.
So let's talk about education. So like say there's a kid in high school that really wants to make films, doesn't really know how to get into it. What's the best way for like maybe a kid on the reservation or some kid in rural Montana to get into filmmaking?
The Media Training Center, we have scholarships right now. We actually have 80 tribal scholarships. And then we are working on more scholarships across the state. That's kind of one of my biggest missions is I really believe this should be a Montana-led industry. And actually it just takes a little bit of training. So that's huge. MAPS Media Institute does some great high school training. There's a lot of us trying to make sure that we can get into it. And I would have loved that growing up in Montana. We're also partnering with the live music events. So we have an Introduction to Stagehands course, and that's so exciting. We launched that in June, and immediately we had a lot of our graduates work on Pink and Pearl Jam and all of those big concerts that were coming through. And it's just a really good fit for the youth who want like a summer gig, and even teachers. And so that's one of the work we're doing is to make sure people in Montana are getting these jobs.
And that's great. In filmmaking too, like there's so many trade jobs that go into this.
Yes, this is blue collar. I mean, I think we think about glamorous Hollywood. That is not the reality of filmmaking. It's actually one of the hardest jobs, and there's hundreds of jobs. You know, there's grip and gaffer, there's DIT, hair and makeup, catering. So there's a real spinoff of entrepreneurship. There's jobs that can be made out of this. You know, I've heard some really cool stories about people coming and like buying stuff from an antique store, and they're getting their whole month's worth of rent in that one shop.
Oh, wow.
I mean, I had a pleasure of talking to some people who own a ranch, and Somewhere in Montana was filmed there, and they were talking about how that helped them keep their ranch. So there's a whole ripple effect here that's very powerful, and I think we need to get loud about the fact that if done correctly, this really does benefit Montana.
And there does seem to be a big push in more Western-themed films that are kind of becoming popular again.
Yeah, it seems like Western films and music is really popular, and there's a bunch of films that aren't that happening here too, you know, and I think that's very cool. Like Montana doesn't need to be in one kind of lane. We can do anything. I mean, we've got so many different looks. Now, the other thing is we don't officially have like a working studio because we have not been able to get this cap high enough for that to pencil out. But if we did, I have talked to a few pretty great people who would need to train about 400 Montanans to work full time. And I am not somebody who wants anyone to lose their job. You know, when I was a kid, my dad, you know, Montana was hard, and he had to work like selling Christmas trees for a while and doing all that. And he always said, you know, you've got to be adaptable. But in Missoula, we just recently lost our lumber mill, and we had about 150 displaced workers from that. And I would not wish that on anyone. And at the same time, they could easily be trained to work in the film industry. We would pick them up in a heartbeat because it's the same kind of work. You have to work together as a mission to come up with a product. It's actually called media manufacturing because you basically manufacture a product at the end of it.
Oh, yeah. That's so interesting. Totally.
Yeah.
And essentially a film set is really a job site.
It's the same as construction. The other people who are so good at this are veterans. And we have got a few veterans that we've trained, and boy, they fit right in, you know, and talk about an important way to move back into like the civil work is filmmaking, because it's a mission base. Everyone has to be good at their roles. There are roles and hierarchy and people that work together and don't work together to create, you know, a product at the end. Oh,
that's so incredible. Man, it makes me excited to go get on a film set because it's so fun and electric, and it can be super grueling because
it is
12-hour days are kind of the norm.
That's why Montanans are good at it.
Right.
We, like you started this with, we're not complainers.
Yeah. We
aren't actually very dramatic for the most part. You know, on a film set, problems are always coming up. And it's more about your attitude than the problem. Mm-hmm. And so when people work with Montanans who are trained, they are blown away. Like the kindness, the hard work ethic, the lack of complaining, the ability to work in lots of weather.
Oh, right.
You know, we're really great at this. And I guess there's a real feeling that it's outside of Montana coming in. And I hear that. And at the same time, we're working really hard at the coalition of those of us who work in Montana to make this an inside. We're doing the work. We're getting paid. We're providing for our family. And I'm really concerned if we don't get this cap up that those of us like myself whose family depends on this industry are going to be displaced.
Is there anyone in the political sphere that needs to be convinced that are dragging their feet on this kind of thing? Or because like we're going into an election year, a really important Montana election.
Yes.
I had Ryan Busey on, and he actually just kind of brought up like the need for Montanans to support film productions. And I mean, that was unprompted. Like we were just talking about jobs. He was like, the film industry, like, let's talk about how many jobs that provides and what a great line of work that is. So that kind of was like a good selling point for me on him, knowing that kind of the importance of film in Montana.
Yeah. You know, I think the really cool thing about this bill is that it is actually bipartisan.
Yeah.
So I think that is so important. This is more about educating people than it is about any kind of one side picking it. For instance, it's always been led for a long time by Senator Hertz, who's Republican. And this year we're really working to see if we can get like maybe the Native American Caucus to help co-sponsor it. So because there's so much work coming out of tribal communities. So I'm proud of that. I'm not interested in the contentiousness around this. I'm more interested in like, can we get Montanans benefiting from any political side?
Sure.
I mean, I really believe in that. I always say when you and I were growing up, this was a purple state.
Yep.
It was a state that if you were in the ditch, it didn't matter what political party you were, people just picked you up.
Right.
And I'm kind of sick of the contentiousness, to be honest. I really just care if Montanans are thriving. And I guess that's where I'm coming from. And I also come from a family, and I think you do as well. You know, my dad was political. He worked really hard for things. And he was of the mindset, if you live in Montana, you're obligated to be a service to Montana. And so he would kind of be like, just pick which one. For him, a lot of it was wilderness. He really cared about that. My mom was really into like medical and jobs that way. I really care about workforce. I mean, I really care that Montanans, because we have a housing crisis for multiple issues, as you know, but one of them is wages. Mm-hmm. You know, we're not competitive with remote workers. So how can we get competitive? I think film industry is the answer.
Oh, that's so great. I do too.
Good.
I do too.
I do. And it's also the youth are really excited. And we talk about brain drain in Montana. Mm-hmm. There's a real feeling like from youth that I have to leave here to survive. And that is hard for me as a Montana, but also as a mom. You know, I have a kid who's a freshman in high school. He now works with me, which I think is really cool.
Really?
Yes.
Do your little PA?
Yeah. So he is trained to be a stagehand. You have to be 16 for a lot of these jobs or older, just, you know, work laws. But he is now trained in it. And as soon as he's of age, he can start doing it. And he's so excited.
Nice.
And I just think like, as a mom, I want him to explore the world, but it'd be pretty cool if he had an opportunity to stay and work too. So I do want to talk about that. So we consider this like career tech education. So that's known as CTE.
Okay.
And we are working with schools. We have 135 students in Billings who are interested. We have multiple people in Whitefish. We're having conversations with Whitefish and Kalispell. We have conversations Harding and Pryor, Missoula. So my goal is like, can we allow the youth to at least have these skills, even if they don't use them?
Would these be like after school programs?
No, we're working on it's an online program we can do in person or online. And if teachers are interested, they can reach out to me, but you can just use it as curriculum in your classroom. So they're online modules that you can show the videos, and they're from professionals from like Spider-Man and all of these like Nat Geo. And they do videos about what they wish you had known and what they wish they had known before they've been on set, and get people ready to be EPAs. You learn how to, you know, use C-stands. You know what a flag is. You learn all the roles and how you interact with them.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, stuff like, because I think film production is one of those things you don't really need a degree or college education to get into, because a lot of times, like when I got into it when I was living in Los Angeles, you just got hired as a PA and you were just kind of had to figure it out, and hopefully your production coordinator was kind enough to kind of show you the ropes.
Yeah, so what we're finding is that it's really helpful. You don't have to have a college degree to do this. And it's super helpful to have a little bit of the language, because many of us showed up and we didn't know what we were doing. And then we felt not prepared, and a little embarrassed. And so what we actually found is we were kind of missing people of color. We're missing women. We're missing some neurodiverse people because that can be overly intimidating. Mm-hmm. And we are finding that giving a little bit of this training, you come on the set so much more confident and you actually move up faster. So we have a lot of our graduates who start working right away because we also have a database, and producers call me constantly. Right now there's a film in Great Falls. I'm going to send them my whole list of PAs and some of the crew. And we find our PAs move up quick, like to second AD, because people are like, whoa, you are not a first time. And they're like, yeah, this is my first time on set. Because we also do hands-on where you get to grab and set up the C-stands and, just know how to use a walkie-talkie.
Right.
People don't realize, like, that's intimidating.
Uh-huh.
What do you say?
I guess that's another great example of why veterans would be so good at it, because
Totally.
It's just like comms and everything. A lot of the lingo is derived from military lingo anyway and stuff. So
Yes.
yeah, that's so fun.
Do you want to do the slideshow?
Yeah, let's do the slideshow.
It might be helpful.
So what do we have here?
All right. So this is the Montana Media Coalition presentation. We are doing this across the state, and we are having two really, really fun events that are coming up. We've already done one in Bozeman, and we also did one in Polson, which was a blast. But we have one in Missoula, November 8th. It's at the West Side Theater. And then we are having a really cool one at the Yellowstone Film Ranch, and that's in Livingston. And that's like a stand-up ranch where they do a bunch of projects. They have like over 10 features that have been shot there. And that is October 26th from 3 to 6 p.m. Anyone's invited. It's on Eventbrite. Maybe I can send you that link when it's time.
Yep, definitely.
But we'll have live music. We'll have like photographers there and crew. It'll be really fun.
Fun.
Yeah. All right. So the Montana Media Coalition is officially formed this year. We're 501c6 and anyone can become a member. We are 80 members strong right now. We are looking for more. Our goal before legislation is 300 members. You can be a filmmaker, emerging filmmaker, student, business, and a supporter.
Awesome.
And that's montanamediacoalition.org. So we talked a little bit about the Media Act. Again, the Media Act is known as the Montana Economic Development Industry Advancement Act. It is short for Media Act, and it really is a workforce incentive and economic bill. It passed in 2019 and 2021. We got it to 12 million cap. As part of this Media Act, the Montana Film Office is required to do an economic report to show how this works. And the numbers are quite impressive. We can also send you the economic report.
Sure.
If people love details, I just pulled a few highlights. And some of those highlights are, you can see in 2019 to 2020, we went from about 30 to 40 productions to immediately to 117. So almost triple.
Whoa.
And now we're just almost done with 2024. We still have a couple months. We are at 167 productions filming right now.
Wow.
And the important thing to know about this is we only hear about one or two, but these other ones are filming all across the state. So sometimes I hear this is only benefiting certain communities. That is not the truth. We have everything from Libby to Browning to the Highline. We have one in Great Falls right now. This is happening everywhere, and we're starting to finally build up crew.
And this is not just movies, but like commercials, TV shows,
promo videos, all of those.
Okay, cool.
Limited series, documentaries. Mm-hmm. And these are done by Montanans, for Montanans.
Cool.
So it's something to actually be very proud of. The last numbers that I just think are quite impressive is the first year it passed, we put in $47 million of economic impact in the state. We right now, with a couple months left, have done $312 million of economic impact.
What?
Yes. And we went from 280 full-time jobs right when this passed. We are over 1,000 full-time jobs paying $50K or more, which is a governor's initiative that Montanans are making at least $50K or more. And the film industry is participating in that in a major way.
Almost a living wage.
Yeah. That's
is a
the
living
minimum.
wage. Yeah.
So a lot of people are making more like 70 to 120K.
Yeah, totally.
And
that's great.
It's impressive. And as we've talked about, one of the issues is wages in Montana. We really need to get our wages up, and the film industry pays good wages. We have a small problem. We have been so successful that the Department of Revenue puts this out, and this is how much our cap is. We are already used up till 2028. I would guess right now we have so many productions that we are actually at 2029, and it sunsets in 2029. So in 2025 at the legislative session, if we cannot raise this cap, this industry, these jobs will die. It is a huge year, and it's also the most hopeful I've ever been. We're organized. This is a bipartisan bill, and we have enough people working that it will actually become a Montana bill.
Oh, great.
So the way in which we're doing that is through the coalition memberships. We're doing education. We're making sure Montanans are working. We're talking to each other about projects. I think what I hear sometimes when I present this, people say, well, what's the issue then? Like, why aren't they fully getting on board? I think it's a misunderstanding about some things. I think also the bill could be written to benefit Montanans better. But some of the things I hear is the program costs money. That is actually not true. The program pays for itself. It's $1 in, $1 out. And that was actually presented by the Department of Revenue in 2023 by the Senate at the Senate taxation by Sam Schaefer. And he showed a report that says this program pays for itself. So this is not when we're not asking for Montanans to pay productions. Productions pay Montanans and get a little bit back. Out of their spend.
Right.
It never is paid by Montanans. And I think that's so important.
Incredible.
The other thing is the housing crisis. We want somebody to blame. I think maybe during COVID, there's a few things to look at, but I would say remote workers are one of the biggest reasons, and I don't necessarily blame film. I actually think film can help solve some of that housing crisis.
I agree 100%.
The last thing is that this money just leaves Montana. I don't necessarily disagree with that. And that's why for the first time ever, Montana filmmakers are writing this bill. In the past, it's been a lot of developers and maybe out-of-state producers. This is the first time Montanans, like myself, are writing the bill. And what that looks like are sideboards that protects Montanans. So the things we're asking are to add documentary. It just got left out, and because we haven't been able to pass anything, it hasn't been updated. But we do a lot of documentary. Raise the cap so that we have a clean slate for productions and extend the sunset. The last thing is we'd like to reserve 60% for Montana productions moving forward. That looks like 10% for projects under $3 million, which pretty much hire 100% Montanans. The other thing is qualified companies. These are buckets where the money will be saved moving forward. This means a company that's a production in the state of Montana that has employees that are Montana, we reserve that for them. So that incentivizes production producers who are here already. That's not for out of state. And the last one is for a qualified facility, which might be a studio, and they need to have like 10 to 15 employees. So we're really saying, like, let's keep it in Montana. Let's employ Montanans. Let's leave this money here. We do have unreserved for 40%, which is fine. But right now, the way it's written is first come, first serve, which these huge productions have taken all of it. And then the last thing is just really the training and getting people on set. So I'm really proud. I created the Media Training Center, and we have over 145 graduates who are working. We have 80 tribal scholarships coming up. We're working to get this across Montana in high schools. And we already have commitments from Billings. We're talking to Whitefish here in the next couple of weeks. We're talking to Kalispell. We already have commitments from Harding and Pryor and Missoula.
Oh, that's incredible.
But I would like it to have in every community. Our first graduates came out of Broadus, Montana, which is a small rural. They had 2 graduates. They were the first ones to test this course. And I think that is really cool because we often leave out rural Montana, and we should not. Those people are incredible filmmakers because they're hard workers.
Right.
And we had 2 of them. One of them immediately started working.
Oh, that's so great.
And when you and I talked about this, but when we talk about full-time jobs, again, actors are one piece of it. They're a very small piece on a production. There are like hundreds of jobs going on, lighting and electric, camera, sound, and special effects. There's like the production, hair and makeup, catering. And so we're working at the training center to actually build multiple rapid training courses so that people can move up into these jobs that pay more. A PA is really like $150 to $250 or $250 per day. But you start moving up, you're making $450, $650 a day. And there's a pathway.
That's good money.
Yes. And if we could get it full all year around, now we're talking living wages.
Right.
For families who pay property taxes, who pay state income taxes, that goes back into Montana.
I mean, they can make like in a few weeks what a regular 9-to-5 job would pay in like a couple months, really.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. And those are the filmmakers. That doesn't include like ripple effect entrepreneurship businesses like toilets.
Oh, right.
There's a lot of things that people could start, like coffee shops.
Mobile espresso bars.
Yes.
All those things.
Yeah. Like, the catering or Crafty.
Oh, Crafty. Yep.
I mean, Crafty is its own business. And out of Billings and Livingston, there is a woman who has a portable Crafty, and she is working.
That's great.
And
that's short for craft services.
Craft services. It's my favorite place to be on a set.
I know, right?
It's the snack area. So sometimes people say, like, what can we do to help? There's a few things that would be huge. One, definitely tell your legislators, like, I want Montanans to be working and I want these amendments, support this bill. Secondly, you could become a member. We welcome anyone, and we meet every 2 weeks on Zoom. So because we're a huge state, we just meet online. Come to our events, donate items to those events. That's how we're fundraising for all of this. Also, we are looking for sponsors to the course. And if you are like somebody who donates to 501c3s, we have that ability.
Great.
So we have had 2 donors, and that's how Billings and Missoula have been paid for these high school students. We also have an introduction to stagehand course, and they are working all the time because Montana's become a hub for live music too.
Oh, this is really exciting.
I think it's very exciting. And then just the summary, because the takeaways that I really want people to know is 2025 is a huge legislative session for us. We are at a crossroads where we either have Montanans working or we displace Montana workers. The program pays for itself. It does not come out of a budget. It is, again, more like a refund, and they have to spend the money here, and then we get to keep it. And basically, Montanans can have millions of dollars of economic impact, or we can have none. I really just encourage people to work together. So I am one of those people who would love to hear from people if they have ideas, if they want me to know things, if they want me to meet with people, like reach out to me. And I would say, if you want to, montanamediacoalition.org, you can email me from there.
Is that Montana spelled out, montanamediacoalition.org?
Yeah. And on that, there's like a message for me. There's also like a really fun little animation that shows how it works in case it's complicated. And I want people to feel confident in how it works. The other thing is that we created at the Media Training Center a database. We have like 500 members. And so producers have started to call me. I probably get a call once a week, and it's all to get Montanans working.
Is this on most Montana politicians' radar?
I think it needs to be on more. We're really working on that.
Mm-hmm.
I guess for me, it's just, will we get it in time? There's so much education. There's so much loudness around maybe the other side of not wanting this. And I think it comes from not understanding how many Montana filmmakers actually do it. And it's partially because creatives are a little bit quiet. They just want to work. They're shy. Mm-hmm. They don't want to be involved in politics. Mm-hmm. I have the dubious honor of being voted in as the president, and that involves like putting this out there for the first time, as having Montanans say we do want it. So it's so daunting, and I think it's so daunting to me because, again, I just don't think there's this understanding that, like, and I guess I'm going to come from the heart as much as I can because I've done a lot of facts. I'm very concerned about Montana filmmakers who are raising their families here. I'm really concerned that there's not an understanding that for us, we depend on this to keep working, and I am in that category. I have 2 boys and a wonderful husband, and this has provided us an ability to buy a house. It provides us the ability to go take them rafting in the summer. I'm very concerned for my friends across the state who depend on this. I've already seen the ripple effect of it not passing in 2023. So in 2023, we tried to do this. It was a 50-50 vote. When you get a 50-50 vote, a tie means you lose. I have already had multiple friends who've lost income from 1923 leaving Butte. Butte was really economically benefiting.
It was like 80 million or something that Yellowstone brought in.
Yellowstone brought over 89 million of economic impact. Now, I do think moving forward, I would like to create film-friendly communities, because I don't think every community in Montana wants this. But I think if you do want it, we could come up with a way that you are promoted as an area that wants it. If you don't want it, I think we should respect that as well. Maybe not everybody wants these productions to come, but I will tell you, Butte, for the most part, did, and they were benefiting so much. Their businesses, the locals. Now, housing became an issue because they keep bringing in crew. We need to get to the place where it's local crew, so we don't even have to come up with housing. But I had a friend who said, I can share this, that she was working for Yellowstone or 1923 in Butte. When they left, she lost her home and her job. Oh. And I think that we are forgetting the people that this really matters to. And yet we also have this great ability moving forward to like benefit the Montana filmmakers and the businesses. So I think we're on the same side when you're
Totally.
talking about politicians. I actually think the legislators need to know that it's filmmakers writing this bill who are from Montana, that we are creating a bill with sideboards that protect us. And I think we're on the same side, and moving forward, this could really be a benefit. If we don't get this cap raised, people are going to lose their jobs who are Montanans.
Oh, that's terrible.
It could be great. I'm trying to be hopeful.
Yeah.
And this whole tour is like, we're the most organized we've ever been. We actually already have the bill written.
Oh, great.
We are working with a sponsor, and he's reviewing that bill. This will be the first time I think it could be the most hopeful and the most protected bill for this industry. But this industry tells our stories, and we have enough people trained who are actually going to be Montanans telling Montana stories. And I think that's what people kind of care about too.
That's so important.
Yes, I think so too. Like, I think, you know, a Texas man's version of Montana may not be what we want, but a Montana.
And vice versa. Like, I don't want to go to Texas and tell the Texan story. It's like, I don't know those nuances.
But I know you're telling stories as a filmmaker. Mm-hmm. I'm telling stories as a Montana. I have a really powerful story that we are looking at filming in the spring of 2025 that takes place on the Flathead Reservation with tribal communities. And the investors are telling me we would have to go to Canada if we can't get this. And and I'm like, no way. I think Montana's land is part of the story and the people. So I'm fighting hard for so many things like that.
So it's that much of an economic impact that they'll be like, oh, we can't film in Montana. Like, it's so much more money will be saved or made by filming somewhere else that's has better incentives, is basically what I'm hearing.
It's pretty black and white when producers do, for instance, the project we just had our UPM do the budget. And at the bottom of the line, it says the incentive. So if that is not available, our investors will say, sorry, Lynn Wood, we have to go to Canada or Oklahoma or New Mexico or Arizona because it's not going to work for them. I mean, it's just smart business.
Right.
And so I'm fighting for filmmakers in Montana. I'm fighting for projects that are made by Montanans. I'm fighting for Montana economic benefit. And those communities that actually want this.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah. Thanks, Morgan, and thanks for sharing this, because the truth is, like, people need to share this side.
Right.
And so, you know, please share this and share it with your legislators, but share it with community members too, that the reality is Yellowstone's done. They already filmed.
Yeah, they wrapped.
They're wrapped. They're gone. With that, we have a problem where potentially that credit's gone for the rest of the projects that want to be filmed here. And again, I'm not being disparaging against them. It's not my place, but I really, really want to make sure that our projects moving forward with Montana filmmakers can also benefit.
And that's going to require some grit, but that's what like filmmaking is all about.
Yes.
And I feel like Montana is actually in a great spot. So when you are not in production, there are so many jobs that you can do. Say as just a filmmaker, I mean, trade jobs like plumbers and electricians, all of them, like, I think have a better chance to go work and do other things. But like as a filmmaker, I found like great opportunities in the nonprofit sector because so many nonprofits need videos for grants. And there's just so much more of a need for video content in foundations and especially nonprofits.
It's such an important skill. It's a skill that translates into almost every job that exists today. And also, I want to just tell a few stories too real quick, but like I have a friend who's a fireman and he worked as a medic on these sets on his time off and he was able to get a new roof. You know, it can also be extra income for jobs that have skills like that, or a contractor who comes in, like, builds a set. There's these other side hustle opportunities too. That's where we're at. I think we're hopeful. Simultaneously, I just hope people can hear the heart piece of this, which is Montanans are finally trained to do this, and we're finally at a place where we can start working full time, and it will not happen if this bill does not go through.
So it'll be submitted this legislative session, and they only meet like every 2 years or something, right?
That's why this is such a big year. Yeah. So we already have the impact of 2023 where they did not pass any of this. We already have people losing their jobs. In 2025, if we don't, there will be no more. I mean, like you said, there'll be little probably promo videos, but those don't pay people full-time wages. Mm-mm. And we're just at a crossroads that I keep saying that word because it could not be more true.
So to wrap it up, what can people do? How can they reach out to you? Yeah. What are the plugs?
Yeah. Well, please reach out to me. I really am accessible. I want to hear from Montanans. I am a Montanan. So MontanaMediaCoalition.org. There's a join page. There's also my email on there. And I will get back to you. And then simultaneously, please say to people, if there are so many Montana filmmakers now and we need these sideboards so they can keep working, and reach out to your legislators. We need the positive talk.
Yeah, that's great. Awesome. Lynn Wood Fields.
Thank you.